We are back. It is First and Pod. We will do a schedule takeaway from every team. We are late to this because I was on national TV in New York and Pony was taking a baby to Disneyland in California. I honestly think your accomplishment was bigger than mine. How did it go?
No, it was not, because what you were doing was you were setting yourself up to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in your career, and I was spending the weekend equivalent of that amount of money. So you made a much wiser long-term decision. I guess you can't put a price on the sentimental memories and everything else that was made this week, and they were great.
Sure you can.
But, I mean, if somebody came to me and offered me both weeks, yours or mine, I would probably pick yours.
That's adorable that you said probably.
I would probably pick yours. We could do a whole podcast on last week. I just have one quick one for you. It won't take long. If you had to guess the mean temperature in Southern California last week, what would you go with?
I have absolutely no idea if it was above average or below average. So
no, what do you think the number is?
No, I know, but I mean, you're saying what it was last week, not what it normally is.
Well, what would you expect it to be? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I would expect it to be 80 degrees.
69.
Were you a little disappointed?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I understand that Northern California is basically in the 60s, 365 days per year. Okay. Yeah. But I did not know that marine layers and everything else and being right on the ocean meant that you could go to Orange County and San Diego in May and high of the day is 68 degrees. So we didn't pack for that. We packed like we were going to the friggin' beach for 7 days.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for your inconvenience. That must have been really hard to be in Southern California in perfect 68 degree weather. That must have been awful.
I have a take on every AFC team schedule. I organized mine from hardest schedule to easiest schedule.
Okay, I did mine by divisions.
Yep, I think that's always your default here.
Yeah,
the divisions. So I will start with Cleveland.
Okay,
because they have the league's hardest schedule. Opponent win percentage 547. They play 12 of their 17 games against teams that finished over 500, plus throw the Chargers in there. So that's probably 13 to 17 tough games. I scheduled week 6, and that's at Philly, and here's why. Their schedule starts in a way where they can get off to probably a 4-1 record, 3-2 worst case. And I think it's going to tell us a lot about Deshaun Watson and what kind of player he's going to be this year. They've got the Dallas game. That's Brady's debut. Then at Jacksonville, followed by the Giants at home, at the Raiders, which will be a quasi-Browns home game in Vegas with all their lunatic fans going out there. And then Washington. And then after that, it's hellacious. So they've got to start like 4-1. But bigger than that, Danny, I think, is Deshaun Watson had a great second half against the Ravens and then got hurt. And then the guy that took his job up until the Houston playoff game did better. So with that $60 million cap hit and it all guaranteed, the worst contract maybe in worst trade possibly in pro sports history, he's got to get off to a great start. And I can't wait to hear what Brady says about him in that first broadcast. Will he pull punches? Will he come out and rip the guy? We know that apparently massages are off limits because of the roast, so that probably won't come up during the game. But yeah, that start to the season, it gives Cleveland some leeway because their schedule really stiffens from about week 6 on.
So I will start with my team, the Chicago Bears. And I'm surprised they didn't get more love. Week 2 is awesome. At Houston, Sunday Night Football, Caleb trying to be this year's version of CJ Stroud. If Caleb has a big week 1 against Tennessee, which is a pretty cushy opener at home, there's going to be a massive amount of hype for that game. But then noon against the Colts, noon against the Rams, noon against the Panthers, London game against Jacksonville, bye, noon against Washington, 3:05 against Arizona, noon against New England, noon against Green Bay, noon against Minnesota, Thanksgiving, then at San Francisco in the national window at 3:25, then finally another scheduled national TV game in week 15, Monday Night Football, then noon, Thursday Night Football, noon. I thought that they were going to be, just given market size, their offseason, and Caleb Williams, that they would be a multiple Sunday Night Football or multiple Monday Night Football team, and they delayed all of their division games. They don't play a division game until week 11. That's insane. So I just really didn't like the schedule in terms of pomp and circumstance, but in terms of winning football games, I think it actually sets up very well for the Bears because it's a pretty soft start.
Yeah, it really is. I give them credit for making the week 2 game the Sunday night game. I haven't looked at the entire week 2 schedule, but to highlight the 2 young quarterbacks and pit them against each other and make it a standalone game, I like that early in the year.
Yeah, that's a great game.
To make that call. I mean, to me, though, that's not a no-brainer to put Chicago and Houston. I would not have guessed, because we obviously knew all the games. We just didn't know the order of them. I would not have guessed that was going to be a primetime game. Would you have?
I mean, it was one of the more high-profile games that we were talking about locally out of division, but it's shocking that Bears-Packers is not a night game.
Right, that's a layup right there. They've got their young quarterback, and we think we have ours. Let's put it in front of them at the longest, the oldest rivalry in football.
Yeah. 9 out of 10 years, about on average going back. That's a Sunday night or a Monday night game. So they got
last year.
What?
They didn't play in prime time last year.
They opened the season in the
325, 425.
Yeah, in the 425.
Not a Sunday night game.
No, not a night game. But right now, it's both Bears Packers games are slated for noon. It's crazy, very unusual.
Yeah, that's like when you see Steelers Ravens games at 1:00, which is very, very rare. Speaking of the Ravens, Danny, what do you make of this whole? Are you one of these Warren Sharp guys who thinks that they made out like bandits because they apparently have the biggest rest advantage in the history of the schedule?
Well, rest matters.
Does it? Like when you're making your picks on your show against your kids and against your wife and against your co-host, are you saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, this team played on Thursday and they had actually a mini bye, so they had a week and a half to get ready for this game, and oh no, this team played Sunday night. They only had like 5 days to get ready. I'm taking the team that had more time off. Do you actually do that? Because I don't.
Yeah,
should I start?
That's a factor. Especially for well-coached teams and like coaches that have good records off a bye. You don't think that rest matters in an NFL schedule?
I'm being completely blunt. Maybe a bye week I have, like Andy Reid, record coming off a bye. Everybody knows how great he is. Other than something like that, I don't handicap games thinking this team has 6 days rest and this team only has 5. I'm taking the team with the extra day. I've never done that before.
Well, one extra day, I generally speaking am with you, but like the Giants this year, like both of their games against the Cowboys, they're on short rest. Like just a little schedule quirk for the Giants. Like I think that matters. I absolutely think that matters. Sure.
Well, then that's a huge break for the Ravens, in your opinion, because they play more playoff teams from a year ago than any team in the NFL. Yeah. They play 10. And it's also very bizarre that I think 6 of their games are not played on a Sunday. They've got Wednesday games, Saturday games, Thursday games. Lamar Jackson's been very good in those games. I'm surprised he didn't respond to that and give me his Wednesday night and Thursday night stats when he responded to my mean tweet a couple of weeks ago. I also think this sets up for one of those moments where he has a great week 1 game, and we then have to the first Friday of the year discuss like the ramifications of him going into Kansas City and possibly winning a game or playing great, and what that means for him 4 months down the road when they play a game in January, which I won't be prepared to do, but we'll have to do that.
The Detroit Lions, obviously a ton of national staying power. We were on them early last year. The league is caught up. Only 6 of their 17 games are in the 1 p.m. Eastern window. So it's all national TV, standalone Thanksgiving, or the 4:25 Eastern window. My only, so 2 things. 1, week 5 bye. The early bye is tough because that means they've got 13 games, 13 consecutive weeks with a game. And then I feel like if we're doing rematches of the Super Bowl or Championship Sunday, and obviously the Chiefs-Ravens is the opener.
Yeah.
I feel like the other rematch should be early. I didn't like how long we had to wait last year for Eagles-Niners. And Lions-Niners is week 17.
Okay, this might not exist anymore, but somebody told me a few years ago that a big reason why a lot of those games get delayed and pushed back into November and December has very little to do with the NFL wanting those games to be played late in the season where there's more at stake. And it has to do with like television sweeps time. I don't know if local sweeps is still a thing, but like when they get their, like the ratings that where they get measured off of and they get bonused off of and they make their money is like the window is like mid-November to early December or something like that, Danny.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is even later. This is later than that.
What week is it? Week 17?
Week 17.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That's dumb. I'm with you.
Like that's
like, let's get a measuring stick game between the 2 teams like the first week of October, something like that. Give them 3 or 4 games to get their sea legs under them.
Yeah.
And then let's play that game in the late afternoon window.
And I get that it could be because I feel like if you do it in week 17, it's, these teams could see each other in the playoffs in a couple of weeks. All right, fine. But it completely negates all of the storylines of San Francisco kept Detroit from the Super Bowl last year. Like, who cares? Who cares about last year's NFC Championship game on December 30th of this year?
Yeah, it'll only be about where those teams are positioned for this season.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So
if you're doing local media in Detroit, are you asking, well, I guess Reynolds isn't there anymore, but like in week 17 around Christmas, are you asking Dan Campbell about the timeout stuff again and about the 4th downs and everything? No, all that's gone by the wayside by then. All those storylines are gone. You're right about that.
Yeah, I thought that was just really it's really dumb. Dude, December 30th. Like, I know we'll be locked in, and I know you laugh at me for these takes, but like, that's holidays, man.
Well, we got to get to some of those points here in a little bit.
I know.
Steelers are next. My team. They, like your Bears, no division games until week 11. Crazy things happened with their schedule. They're not happy at all having to play the Christmas game. I know that. This is a very Catholic family. I don't think they like the idea of the NFL playing on Christmas, period. And they got to host that game, and all their staff and stadium staff and everything else and families have to be at the game. I think they more fall into your category with that. Me, I'm just ecstatic that at 1:00, once all the presents get opened and stuff, I can settle in for a big-time NFL game. I have circled week 14. That is December 8th. That is when I think Justin Fields becomes the Steelers' starting quarterback. That is a home game against Cleveland. The weeks before that, 3-in-a-row division, Baltimore at Cleveland at Cincinnati. I think if they go 0-3 or 1-2 in those games and their playoff lives are starting to look iffy, Tomlin's going to roll the dice and go with Fields. And by the way, our guy Colin Cowherd, who you're in like Flint with, thinks that this is Mike's last year and is going to get hired and going to be in TV with you guys next year. So that'll be really funny if Mike goes to Fox, especially because I know how much Mike likes me and we know how much Nick Wright likes me. So what will Nick do in that situation? He probably, you know what, though? He's got Mangini. He won't get, Tomlin won't go do first things first. They'll put him right on the desk, don't you think? He'll take the Jimmy Johnson
I think he probably skips right to the desk. That's, yeah.
Which, why don't those guys go on Nick's show?
It's a good question.
You know, why don't we get a Michael Strahan spot? Why don't we get a Howie Long spot? Why don't we get that crossover? That corporate synergy, I think, would be excellent.
Got to keep the seat open for your boy.
True.
All right, Green Bay Packers. I'll just double down on how ridiculous it is that we don't get Packers Bears until week 11. I absolutely hate what they did to the NFC North this year. I get backloading a schedule, but Packers have the same quirk.
Well, we don't get Steelers Ravens until the same thing, week 11, November 17th.
I don't like it. I get putting division games at the end of the schedule, but the Packers play 2 division games the first 10 weeks of the season. That's just dumb. We should get early division games and late division games. It shouldn't be all late in the season. I love the Thanksgiving night game, though. That was my takeaway for the Packers game. Packers Dolphins at night at Lambeau is an excellent Thanksgiving night game. I feel like that third game sometimes has like real boomer bust potential. But Tua in the
What's the Cowboys Thanksgiving game?
Cowboys Thanksgiving game, because it's Bears Lions and it is Giants. Cowboys Giants. So I think Bears Lions is excellent, and I think Packers Dolphins is excellent. Cowboys Giants is just a Cowboys game, obviously.
Yeah, I kind of give that a B-, that Thanksgiving schedule. I have the Texans next year, and I just use this as a way to shoehorn in a discussion about Netflix and Christmas. Houston, one of 4 teams that are going to play on a Wednesday, Christmas Day. If you want this to be the portion of the show where you vent about this again and say that it's BS that the NFL has usurped the day away from the NBA and that it's forcing people to prioritize football over families, and you don't think that's fair, fine. Or you can be like me and say, holy crap, they gave us 2 5-star matchups on Christmas, and they're late enough in the day where you can get all your kid stuff done. And
they're not.
What do you mean?
If you're going to do this, it should be 4 and 8. It should not be 1 and 4.
I don't disagree with that. You make again, the FS1 shine. You went there, you had some great takes, and you had some leftover ones in the chamber here. I agree again. They should be night games.
I think it's a little disrespectful. And I'm
to who?
Really
Jesus?
I mean, to be honest, no, to me. And the families.
But what, okay, so what do you think for you? Because everyone has different traditions on that day. Like, do you think infringing on the present time so you're saying that's worse than the Christmas dinner?
Yes, I am.
Time.
Yes, because of kids. Christmas is for the kids. You can have your pot roast or your tenderloin or your ham or whatever with some football in the background.
Yeah, the same thing we do on Thanksgiving.
Exactly. But any present spillover into noon, or like, for people on the West Coast, they got a Christmas game starting at 10 a.m. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like you're hitting on something that I'm frankly surprised none of these sports media critics have asked, like either Mike North, the guy that put the schedule together, or asked, any NFL executive, like, why are these day games and not primetime games on Christmas? Well, I guess 4:00 out west isn't, but like you said, make
4
them
and 8.
late afternoon evening games.
Yeah, 4 and 8 Eastern, not 1 and 4 Eastern. That just feels a little bit more decent to people with families. to me. December 8th for the Vikings is Kirk Cousins and Falcons and Vikings when he goes back to Minnesota. I think that game is just fun and weird and something that we did not expect. And it's, we knew it was going to happen in terms of the schedule, but now we know when it is. So I think that for a team that's not going to be very good and their season is very, very, very difficult. They open with the Giants, but then it's 6 straight games. It's Niners, Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, Rams. So I think it could be a real tough year in Minnesota. But December 8th, Kirk Cousins makes his return to Minnesota.
You flip-flopped on Minnesota. You ended up liking their draft because you thought it was such a quarterback-friendly place, which is like a testament to their system. And now you're saying it's a rough year for them potentially.
I mean, it's a great division. It's a tough sequencing of this guy. I think they open real tough. And so, yeah, I think it's going to, I think they're going to finish in 4th place in the division.
I agree that of the games on their schedule is obviously the one that probably people anticipate the most. But where is Kirk Cousins on the all-time list of Vikings quarterbacks? Does he even crack the top 5? If I were a Vikings fan and I was going to that game, I would I wouldn't boo the guy because I don't think he deserves that. But I also don't think he deserves any kind of welcome back to Minnesota, Kirk. He won 0 playoff games there. He has no legacy whatsoever with that team. None.
Yeah. I mean,
Dante Culpepper going there with the Dolphins would have been a bigger homecoming than this.
I mean, obviously Kirk put up the bigger numbers, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, there's some.
They didn't win bleep. They won nothing with him.
Undeniably true.
Bills next. They ease into it with Arizona. And then here comes the murderer's row of at Miami, Jacksonville, at Baltimore, at Houston, and at the Jets. 4 out of those 5 games are in prime time. It looks like they're going to get backed into a corner again unless Josh Allen does some Superman crap, because that's a schedule that to me has 2 and 4 written all over it. And with that is going to come questions about the head coach for sure, and also questions about the whole way the team was constructed and put together.
I wasn't listening.
I get it now. Now that you're a big Fox Sports guy.
I wasn't listening.
You don't have time for the little guys here on First and Pod. So I gave you an eloquent take on the Bills schedule, and it just went in one ear and out the other. How about you now you say something about your team? I will pay very close attention and definitely give a nice cogent rebuttal. Please.
Okay. Excellent. We will then go to the Philadelphia Eagles, who better be good. I think they're good. I think that the last 6 weeks of last season is more likely an aberration. I don't think that they beat the Bills and then immediately forgot how to play football. And I liked the draft in terms of taking, upgrading their pass defense in the way that they did with Mitchell and DeJean. But open in Brazil, Monday Night Football in week 2, 5 national TV windows, 5 325 windows. If the Eagles are the, oh my God, this team's going to collapse and we're really bad take, we're going to have a problem because we're going to be watching a lot of them this year. They got a lot of respect for a team that completely collapsed down the stretch.
Back with more First and Pod right after this.
All right, welcome back in First and Pod. Danny Parkins, Andrew Fillipponi, mostly listening to each other. Listen, Game 7's on in the background too, okay? I mean, we're doing this during Game 7, which is irresponsible.
What's the score?
65-63.
I already made my money. I made a series of unbelievable bets that you guys completely no-sold and gave me very little credit for. And you should have jumped on my NBA playoff bandwagon because I'm swimming in it right now like Scrooge McDuck.
Well, you got to pay for your Disney World travels or
Correct.
Disneyland travels.
That's very true. I'm going Jags here. Speaking of trips, they go to London twice in the first 7 weeks back to back. They play your Bears there. Is that a Bears home game?
Yeah.
That's just don't get me started on that. I think that's garbage. First 4 games are against playoff teams from a year ago. So before we went to break, you mentioned the Eagles and their collapse and how are they going to respond right out of the box. Jacksonville is the AFC equivalent of that. Are they going to be the team that around the halfway point of the season was looked at as a quasi Super Bowl contender? Or are they more like the team that finished getting blown out in Tennessee with a playoff spot on the line? It's at Miami, Cleveland, at Buffalo, and at Houston to start. Sounds like 1-3 to me. At Miami, Cleveland, at Buffalo, at Houston. And I know what that means. By the time we get to Columbus Day, Danny Parkins is going to be on the First and Pod podcast, if he hasn't already left for FS1, saying,
Stop.
Here we go. Here we go again with Trevor Lawrence, guys. I know that my wife went to Clemson and I adored him out of college, but why? The same thing I do with Herbert, you do with Lawrence. Why don't we criticize Trevor Lawrence more? Why don't we hold him to a higher standard? And that could very easily happen after the first month of this NFL season again.
All right, the Dallas Cowboys, no surprise. They get the maximum 6 national TV games. Tough. The only thing that jumped out to me really about the schedule was out of the bye in San Francisco, in Atlanta, home against Philly, home against Houston. It's not who you play, but when you play them. Obviously, coming out of a bye should get them to whatever healthy version they can be at this point. But they better be healthy and playing well in the middle of the season, because that's a very, very, very difficult 4-game stretch. And it's weird about Dallas. 3 straight years winning exactly 12 games, have never made a conference championship in that span. Only team in NFL history to do it. So every other team that's won 12 games 3 years in a row has at least made it to Championship Sunday. And we see it happen a lot. We saw it happen with the Broncos, the Patriots, the Colts, the Saints. We've seen it many times in recent NFL history to have that type of regular season success. But it's never happened where they've had no playoff success. So that's a stretch of games against playoff teams that Dallas will be looking to perform well against. And they probably will in the regular season, and they'll disappoint come January.
They become the 90s Braves of the NFL. It's
without
like, wake me up when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
The regular season. I think their fans are the same way. They're apathetic. I mean, it is going to be wild, dude. You talked about Game 7 you're watching right now. We could absolutely live in a world where the Rangers are the World Series champions, the Dallas Stars are the Stanley Cup champions, and the Dallas Mavericks are playing in the NBA Finals. And the Cowboys are clearly the 4th best team. And they probably already are the 4th best team in their market, even though they're winning double-digit games.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's a pretty incredible testament then to how good all of those other teams are. Given that, Dallas had the best point differential in the NFC last year. They scored more points than any team in football. They're not bad. They just had such an uninspiring offseason. And
correct.
They only get measured by the postseason, which they should, but they're still a very, very good team. Just this
Raiders. The only thing I have on the Raiders here is that they put their return to Kansas City on Black Friday. That is the Black Friday prime game. What they did, beating the Chiefs, being the last team to beat Kansas City last year, apparently made the NFL think that there's some interest in that idea of them being the renegade Raiders and the team that is going to try to beat the tar out of Patrick Mahomes and stick it to him. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. The reason why I do like that game in that spot, I actually think that Kansas City, because of the way the Raiders celebrated that game last year and have talked about it since, I think if they can win the game by 50 points, they will.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not a call the dogs off game whatsoever. And so I am very intrigued by that if it does go in that direction, because I think things have a chance to get very, very old school chippy in that matchup. And if a game is not going to be like a sexy game like Chiefs Ravens to start the year or Chiefs Bengals or something like that, give me two teams that legitimately don't like each other, and it could lead to some crazy stuff happening in the game.
I like it. Well, then I'll go to the Giants because Saquon goes back to New York week 7. I'm thinking about, like, does this have the opportunity to be like a basketball game when a hated player comes back and every time they touch the ball they get booed? Like, is that in, because I feel like the Giants could be 0-6, right? Like they could be
So
atrocious.
So I have a take on this. I think Giants fans, at least the ones who go to games, are different from Jets fans. If that is a Jets player who leaves and goes to the Patriots and he gets the ball in that matchup, I do think he gets booed. I think there's signs. I think they treat him like a pariah and persona non grata. Giants fans are just different, man. They're like old money. They're the type of people that don't stand during games for big plays. Like, they're just like a more dignified, like regal fan base. You don't hear about like fights in parking lots at Giants games. You know, no one has ever said in their entire life, "Oh man, I'd hate to be wearing a Cowboys jersey at MetLife Stadium for a Giants game. Oh boy, it's a scary scene." No, I think most fan bases, given the way things ended and where the player went, would probably do that. But I don't think it will. I think it'll be like a
I guess I
tepid
was just thinking
response
about
for
like
him.
the Tiki Barber stuff after he left and like the words that were said afterwards. Like, part of me just wanted the game to be as early as possible to try to get that extra juice and animosity into it. So week 7, maybe if Giants fans are real pissed about everything, they take it
I
out
agree
on
with you. That should be like a season opener game right there.
Yeah.
Giants and Eagles, not sending Philly to Brazil just to try to milk every money out of international play. Patriots are my next team. They open, by the way, the Patriots had a horrible year and they have a tougher schedule by opposing win percentage than the Bengals and Chiefs. How about that? Patriots. When will Drake May start? So they open at Cincinnati. Mayo's not going to throw him out there week 1 on the road against a really good team, is he? They're not going to do that, right? I mean, that's why you signed Brissett. Brissett was good when he played for Deshaun Watson 2 years ago.
I assume not. It would be crazy. It would be crazy to do it. I think he should sit for a while. But, I mean, the odds are pretty much even, right? Like, I would assume that Drake May is not ready to play. But I've been wrong on this stuff before. Like, but
I think the issue they're going to run into is
him,
you have an older owner.
Yeah.
And if things look ugly, do they throw their fans a bone and put the guy in there before he's ready?
That's
because people don't want to watch Jacoby Brissett with no upside play poorly for 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think I'm looking at their games. Seattle at home's the second game, at the Jets, at the 49ers. That's brutal to start. I mean, maybe then they've got Miami, Houston at home. Maybe he comes in for one of those games. They go to they play Jacksonville, London. I don't think you want a guy's first game to be overseas. It should be more like a redshirt year for May, a la Mahomes. But I'm curious about the owner having the patience to do that, even with a new regime, GM and coach.
So similar story then. I will go to another rookie quarterback in the Washington Commanders. Just not an easy sequence. 3 of his first 4 are on the road. Not the toughest, but at Cincy, at Arizona, home against Cleveland, at Baltimore. Some people think the AFC North is the best division in football. So 3 of your 4 games against that division, with 2 of those 4 on the road, 3 of 4 on the road overall. And then I feel like everything about the transition to the NFL is you're going to hit a wall and it's so tough and it's so different and all of that. He doesn't get his bye until week 14. So he has to play a full college football schedule and the bowl game before he gets a bye. And then he still has to finish. And, his end of the season at New Orleans, home against Philly, home against Atlanta, who should be good, and at Dallas. So I just thought the beginning was tough because it's on the road. And then the bye is late. And then after the bye, it's tough teams too. So hopefully the kid survives for the soft part of the schedule in the middle. But I just thought that the sequencing was pretty tough for a rookie quarterback.
Bengals next. We know how the season starts for them. We just mentioned the Patriots, or I did, and then you've got at Kansas City after that. So 2 road games. We've seen this. Here's the rub on Cincinnati. Burrow might have some rust because of the injury. You've got guys that are unhappy with their contracts. They just strike me as a team where I want to bet them to do something, to do damage. Not right now, where their odds are like the 4th or 5th shortest in the NFL. With their schedule and with Burrow having missed time last year and needing to work his way back in road games to start, Danny, I think I might want to wait until closer to Halloween to bet them, because they're the type of team that could start 3-4.
Yeah, I like that.
And find their way to get to 11-6 or something like that, and still be the team that gives Kansas City the most trouble. It will be interesting to see how the Higgins and Hendrickson thing get rectified, if they do it at all. And
right. It might just be they've got some disgruntled players who have to play as they try to win one before it gets torn apart. So was there an explanation for why a division like the NFC North is so backloaded with its division games? And then the NFC South, which I know people don't care about as much, but Atlanta, 5 of its first 6 games, 5 of the 6 games that it plays in division are in the first 10 weeks of the season. And then they end with Carolina. So the NFC South, which has been such a bunched up division for forever, right? 3 teams with 7 wins and all of that. All the tiebreakers are going to be determined by week 10. I mean, obviously it can play out differently and it can go to conference record, and the Falcons end with the Panthers and the Saints end with the Bucks. So there's the one game at the end, but I just think it's so strange that division is so front loaded and these other divisions are so back loaded. Assuming Kirk Cousins is healthy and Atlanta is good, they could have this division wrapped up in the first half of the season if they just go 4-1 in their division games in the first 9-10 weeks of the year. So I just thought that was an interesting quirk compared to, the division that we cover.
I like that point a lot. How about the Jets? 6 primetime games plus the early London game in the first 11 weeks of the season, man. Do you think the timing of these games is relevant? Like the way that they tried to make sure that most of these primetime games were early in the year? Is it the NFL's way of saying, we want Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers brings eyeballs and people have opinions on him and he's polarizing, but we're also not sure if he's going to make it to the finish line and if he's going to get hurt again, or if they're just going to if he's going to have a bad year, father time catches up to him.
I mean, the schedule guy, that Mike North guy, said, he feels like the Jets owe him one. The Jets are,
and by the way, he does not owe Mike. Roger Goodell makes that decision. Okay, let's just make that very blunt. This is not Mike North who wants to put the Jets in these marquee spots.
I don't think he meant like he owes him one. Owe them one. I think he was speaking on behalf of the league, but yes. The I don't know that maybe some Cowboys teams over the years, because the Cowboys have such a huge fan base and everyone's got an opinion on them that they're always maxed out in prime time. But for a non-Cowboys team to get this much primetime love, having accomplished exactly nothing, is a little jarring. I get it. If Aaron Rodgers plays, they are compelling. But what if Aaron Rodgers plays and he's 2022 Aaron Rodgers, which is a slightly average to below average quarterback? Like they're gonna be boring.
Can I just you just made me think about something. Just complete hypothetical. If Tom Brady decided today that he wanted to go play for the Raiders and they gave him that opportunity, would the NFL in the next week change the times of its games?
They should.
But are they like
No. They can't do that now. The schedule's out, man. People have bought plane tickets and tickets have been sold and tickets have been priced in.
But dude, think about the way college football gets done. And then the whole thing with the scheduling where they said, well, for like a week and a half out, we'll change a game from Sunday to Thursday in season.
Yeah. No, they would be, I don't think they would do that, but they would obviously want to.
But you don't even think they could move like games. Okay, so the Sunday and Monday night schedules are like, let's say those are set in stone.
I think Monday and Thursday are the most set in stone because it's a different day of the week.
But I would think CBS and Fox and even NBC would want to get together and say, all right, let's move these times around.
Yeah.
To get Raiders games.
Yeah, they would. They would. They would want to. I don't know if they would be allowed to, but they would definitely want to. They would definitely want to. Am I next?
Yes. Do you want to do you want that point on the NFC South to count for every team?
Only thing is, only point I'll make then about Carolina, and we probably should just to keep it moving, is Bryce Young is potentially set up to just get dunked on relentlessly for all the rookie quarterbacks that he's got to face, who, if they look better than him, he's just like, the narrative is just going to be, oh my God, terrible trade, terrible pick, terrible player. 3 of his first 4 games are against Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix.
Well, look, I'm not a Bryce Young guy, but I don't shoot 100% on these things. I didn't love CJ Stroud, and I thought Kenny Pickett was going to be the next Joe Burrow. So I have to, in this form, allow for the fact that, believe it or not, I'm not always right. I do think that...
Oh, that's first half of the season. My bad. First half. I misread that.
I do think that people have written this guy off as a complete bust with coaching upheaval there, head coach calling plays, offensive coordinator, head coach taking it back, head coach fired, new interim play caller, no real playmakers whatsoever to speak of, pedestrian running backs, Adam Thielen being your best wide receiver, offensive line not being very good. So I just think that and the betting odds reflect this, I just think there's a lot of potential for the Panthers this year to exceed expectations. And it starts with the quarterback going from being probably among guys that play just about every game, being the worst last year, other than maybe Zach Wilson. If he goes from the 30th quarterback to, say, like the 16th or 17th, in that division, they can win 8 or 9 games, Danny. That's not out of the question.
I'm not completely writing him off, but I think that he's set up to be one of those quarterbacks that we say circumstance really did him in. Traded too much to get him, coaching upheaval, multiple systems his first couple of years, no McCaffrey, no DJ Moore, no draft capital to add premium assets around him. Like, I think that he might be the type of guy that he is not as bad as it looks because of the situation. All right, so we're going to skip ahead now for me.
Chiefs are next for me.
Oh,
they've got a...
Sorry, yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
They got a pretty easy schedule for a team that just won back-to-back Super Bowls. But the beginning is not that easy. So let's play another round of, can Andrew Fillipponi lose more money betting against the Kansas City Chiefs? And would you like to take my action on this?
Yeah, always. Always.
First 6 games: Baltimore, Cincinnati, at Atlanta, at the Chargers, the Saints, and at the 49ers. What do you think their record will be after the first 6 games?
5-1.
Would you like to take the over on 4.5 wins, and I'll take the under?
What do you think the actual number would be? 3.5 or 4.5?
Well, it sounds like you just set the number. That's what they tell you to do as a good handicapper. You set your own number, then you compare it to the actual line.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll tell you what.
sure.
Let's make
whatever.
it 4 and we push on 4.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
What is an amount of money that you can get away with where if it disappears from your account and you say, I lost a bet to Andrew Fillipponi, Stephanie doesn't get mad?
Oh, a big number.
So if $1,000 go missing, she's cool with that?
Yeah, I mean,
How about 500?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, big shooter. Big shooter over here.
I just have a quick one on Denver. They open at Seattle. Do you think Nix will be the guy for that game? Does he start from day one there?
I mean, doesn't he have to?
No, he doesn't, because we know that Peyton has weird obsessions with some mediocre quarterbacks.
I know, but like if you're gonna overdraft the kid, you have to believe in him. And they have such little else.
Right, but he also, and I know it could be just lip service, he also goes out of his way, the same way he did with Taysom Hill, to make Stidham sound like a guy that he actually believes is good enough to be an NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah, I don't trust a word these guys say. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up here. More First and Pod after this. Back in on a First and Pod, trying to give you reactions to every team's schedule. Danny Parkins, Andrew Fillipponi, give us a 5-star review. Okay, if we're going to bet the Arizona Cardinals this year, should we wait and assume that the start of their season at Buffalo, home against the Rams, home against the Lions, could have them at 0-3 and then pounce? Because they have...
Give me that again. What is it again? At Buffalo?
At Buffalo, home Rams, home Lions. Like, the schedule is not easy for Arizona.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I'd want to wait because I think they could win those home games.
Okay. I mean, dude, their schedule, they have road games at Buffalo, obviously at San Fran, at Green Bay, at Miami. It's not an easy schedule, but I just thought that the beginning of the schedule in particular was very difficult. And they're backloaded with division games. So I also read this, 6 games for the Cardinals against teams that hired new coaches this offseason. Commanders, Chargers, Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers. So
if you gave the Seahawks and Cardinals Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and subtracted those coaches off the 49ers and Rams, would you pick the Seahawks and Cardinals to finish 1-2 in the division? Because I would.
No, I still think that San Francisco's roster top to bottom is clearly the best.
And so minus Shanahan, now Purdy is on an island without that great coach. He gets
I understand the question. I still think their roster top to bottom. I mean, Shanahan's amazing, but I think a lot. I don't think they're like a 7-win team without Kyle Shanahan. You do?
If Kyle Shanahan's calling plays if Kyle Shanahan's calling plays in Seattle for Geno Smith and their wide receivers, and he's not doing that in San Francisco anymore, I would elevate Seattle ahead of them. Yes, I would.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think he's worth that. He's very good. I don't think he's worth that many wins.
It's an interesting division for me because, and you'll get to it with the other teams, But I think Seattle and Arizona have gotten better. And I think the Rams have gotten worse in its status quo for the 49ers. And the only thing that's keeping me from picking the other two teams to leapfrog the incumbents is because I have so much respect for McVay and Shanahan as offensive head coaches. Colts are next for me. I like looking at the first 4 games with teams. They have Houston to start, at Green Bay, then your Bears, and then my Steelers. What a great gauge we're going to get on Anthony Richardson. I really believe they're a team with him as their quarterback. They could easily be the story of the NFL because he's just one of these dynamic, do-it-all players in the Lamar Jackson mold, or they could completely suck and go 4-13 this year. And I know there's probably like maybe 8 or 9 teams you could do that with.
Right.
But that injury with him and seeing what Steichen did with Minshew and making it work and having them in it to the very last week of the season, they're an under-the-radar team that has the potential to be, you've said this, extremely entertaining,
Yes.
bare minimum, if the quarterback can make more of those wow plays that he did in the first couple of games of the season last year before he got hurt.
Yeah,
and
man, I think I definitely own stock in Anthony Richardson.
Like, I mean, dude, it's I betting him to win the MVP before the season starts, I think is a very smart play, because if he looks like a stud in those first 4 games, he's going to shoot up that board. Like, you're going to probably get a cash out option on him that lets you make money if he is electrifying against those 4 teams: Houston, Green Bay, Chicago, and Pittsburgh.
There's not. How often are they offering you cash out options on props like that?
Oh, you can get futures. Yeah, futures get cash out options all the time.
Okay. I probably always am like, I always have value losers.
Yes, we've gone over that extensively on this podcast. This is your podcast home for people that make bets that others say, wow, that's a great bet. Problem is they never win.
Yeah, exactly. We get another Stafford against the Lions game this year, which, that's fun. And
is it?
What'd you say?
Is it fun? I feel like the bloom's kind of off the rose. And the reason why I'm interested in the game is just because the playoff game itself was pretty good.
Yeah.
The Stafford homecoming does not do much for me.
Well, I mean, I like the Stafford homecoming angle. I like the rematch of the playoff game. I like that it's Sunday Night Football. I just still think Stafford is so damn good.
Can we you're making a good, like, bringing this up is a good way of saying the week 1 schedule is not that good. Look at the matchups. How many good playoff caliber tems, playoff teams from a year ago, play each other the first week of the season?
Yeah, well, the problem is that that Friday game, if Green Bay Philly was on Sunday, it would feel better, because the Sunday night game is good. The Monday night game is good. The Thursday night game is good. The Friday night game is good. It's the Sunday noon and 3 o'clock window that is really, really relying on Cowboys Browns to carry it. And I guess Jaguars Dolphins. But yeah, I think it's because the Thursday, Friday, Sunday night, Monday night is, it's just, that's what the NFL is doing. They're bastardizing Sunday at noon, my favorite day, my favorite time of the year, for all of these prime time windows. And I don't appreciate it.
All right, Tennessee next for me. I think my guy Mason Rudolph is going to be their starting quarterback by October 13th, because they could start 0-4. And this coach has no link to Will Levis. He wasn't there when he got drafted. It's at your Bears, the Jets, the Packers, and at the Dolphins. We power rank them 32. Is there a quarterback worth tanking for in this year's draft? No, there's not. Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders. No, there's not. At least,
no. I mean, there's this could be one of those years where an edge rusher is the top pick in the draft.
But yeah, I think that there could be a quarterback change very early in the cards for Tennessee. I've only got 2 teams left. You're next.
All right, San Francisco. We knew the location of the games, like that they've got, Jets, Chiefs, Cowboys, Lions. That those are home games. The only thing I found here then, like in terms of the sequencing, was Green Bay and Buffalo being late. Cold weather games for them. But for the most part, San Francisco's schedule looks like it should for a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Marquee games, prime time everywhere, games that are unbelievably compelling. The fact that they got to go to Buffalo in December, they probably didn't love when the schedule came out, but they can't bitch or moan about anything like that. Good schedule for a team that's got expectations to be playing in New Orleans in the Super Bowl. I got one left. I got Seattle's my only team left.
Would you say right now that what would you say, like, just quickly, what would you say you would need the odds to be to bet the Bears to win the NFC and make that bet ahead of the 49ers to win the NFC?
Well,
like if the Bears were priced at 50-1, would you bet it?
Yeah, of course.
25-1.
That's about what it is, isn't it? Aren't they less than that? Or 18-1 maybe? I
to win the conference.
Yeah, I know. The Bears to win the conference. Yeah, 25-1. I would. They're 22-1 right now to win the conference.
And what are the 49ers? 3.5-1.
2.5-1.
2.5-1.
Yeah, it's because you know this obviously, but it's because they've got the cleanest path of the division. Like Eagles and Cowboys are in a dead heat.
Well, I don't think it's only that. I think it's also the fact that they went to the Super Bowl last year, and it looks like they have the best 52-man roster if you take the quarterback out of it in the league.
Yeah, you got mad at me for saying that 2 podcasts ago. But yes, I agree. But I'm just saying, if you had to bet, Stella's college fund on one team in the NFL to host a playoff game.
Yeah, I hear you.
You'd bet on San Francisco.
No, I don't think I would actually. I think I'd bet Kansas City. Because you throw the Raiders and Broncos out of it, and it's like, do I think the Chargers are legitimately going to finish with a better record than Kansas City? I can't get there. I can't get there yet.
I can't get there either, but Harbaugh and Herbert, I think, is scarier.
You just bet Stafford to win the MVP, dude. If he's going to win the MVP, they're not finishing in second place. He's not going 10-7 and win the MVP.
Sure it could.
Right, because there's historical precedent for that.
All right. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Dak easily. All right, yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
I have Miami next. My question for them is, they open with Jacksonville. Does Tua have a deal by then?
No.
I think he does.
You think they pay him before the year?
Yep. I think it's a Jared Goff situation. Look at what they've done, dude. They've scaled back their money on guys. They're creating room to pay him. And I feel like the barometer for them was, can he stay healthy for a season? He did. They led the AFC in points scored. Yeah, it was a crappy playoff game, and it ended abruptly like it did the year before, except this time he was on the field. The results were actually worse. They were more competitive in Buffalo with Skylar Thompson than they were with Tua, but I think all signs point to them paying him, man. I think he's going to have a deal done. I think we're going to be, especially you who is not a Tua guy, I think you're going to be gobsmacked by the amount of money they guarantee to him. The coach seems to like him. The coach seems to think he can win a Super Bowl with him, and I think McDaniel's voice obviously carries a lot of weight in that organization.
Well, listen, the guy played every game last year. So, Good luck. I would not want to be around for him being a $60 million a year player when Tyreek Hill loses a step. I would not be interested in that. I thought Seattle's schedule went pretty well for them. Denver and New England early for a first-time head coach. Very nice way to start the season. They get Arizona late. They get Minnesota late. If they're going to be in for a wild card hunt, I thought that their schedule was pretty damn favorable.
Last one for me is the Chargers. They have the easiest schedule in the AFC. They play only 5 games versus playoff teams from a year ago. So we had them lower in our power rankings, but their schedule, I think, is going to allow for them to be one of those teams. Typically, 14 teams make the playoffs. There's at least 6 new teams every year who missed it the year before. If I'm making that list right now, the Bengals are clearly one of those teams. I know you disagree with this, but I would put the Jets there too. And I would put the Chargers as my third. And in your Bears, of course, we have to put the Bears on that list as well.
All right.
And Harbaugh should be coaching the Bears. And if Harbaugh was coaching the Bears, I would legitimately look at them as like a team like the 04 Steelers with Roethlisberger as a rookie that could really go crazy. 14-3 type stuff.
They're going to be good, man. They're going to be very, very good. They're going to be very good immediately, even without Harbaugh. But yes, I wish Harbaugh was coaching this team as well. Thank you to Spencer Ray, our producer. Tell a friend about First and Pod. Do this once a week in the off season. Give us a 5-star review. First and Pod. Peace.